Hello, I'm Cheryl here at the Made on Sunday studio, and typically on this channel I do tutorials all about branding, design, and creative entrepreneurship. But in today's video, I am back with another monthly reset because it is the month of May. And so today I really wanted to kind of dive a little bit into what happened in April, in my business, in my personal life, that kind of thing. And then because it is API month, Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and in celebration of that, I wanted to share a little bit about my story growing up being Asian Canadian and how that has specifically affected my values, how I define success, and how I've become who I am today, living in Amsterdam, as well as owning a full-time online business in the female online digital space. So let's get right into it. All right, so beginning of April, I was left off feeling pretty like, when people say there's ebbs and flows in your life and business, I was definitely in an ebb, I guess, in the beginning of April. There was not a lot going on. I was dry on like client discovery calls or even client projects. And at that time, I had already launched my newest course, Client HQ, and the launch was over. So it was kind of like that rebuilding stage of my business where I was like working on a lot of marketing and creating like the evergreen funnel for my course. And so it was just a lot of like heads down, kind of like rebuilding marketing strategies in my business. And so it was a little tough because I feel like a lot of service providers in the industry can kind of attest to this, and I've been hearing chatters around that business is a little bit slow, with the economy kind of tanking. Like a lot of people are not really spending a lot of money these days, especially on things like branding and maybe even their websites as much, or maybe going for lower cost alternatives or DIY alternatives. So it's been a little slow in the industry in general right now, but a week goes by, and in the early middle of April, I got an email in my inbox. I woke up and I was like checking my emails as usual, and I saw like one of Skillshare's like weekly newsletters or something, and I saw like Notion in the title, and so I was like, ooh, maybe. And so I opened the email up, and before you knew it, it was my face there, right? And like featured in the email newsletter. My course is about Notion, and that's why the title was talking about some of the classes that we were featuring that month or that week, and one of my classes, Client HQ, the newest one, was featured in their newsletter. And so I was so excited, and definitely for the rest of the month, it definitely gave my Skillshare stats a huge boost, which brings in more money into that revenue stream. And more importantly, it just generated a little bit more buzz on my classes in general. And so it was such like a roller coaster ride, to be honest, for the full month of April. I went from like really, really kind of a lower point in my business to suddenly like this sudden inject of like motivation. It was just the thing that I needed to kind of re-motivate me. Not that your motivation should be just determined by, these kinds of metrics, but girls gotta pay her bills. And when you are making that transition from a service-based business to more product-based business, any kind of instant gratification that you can get really, really helps, because most of the revenue will come over time in a, kind of long-term kind of view. So that was a super pleasant surprise. And then a few days later, I got 2 client discovery calls, which was amazing because they both were really, really great ideal clients. And Yeah, I have a new project signed, so that's going to be starting this month in May, and I'm just so excited to get back into designing brands again. I've always been designing brands, and it's so funny because I was actually on one of those discovery calls, and that girl, she actually found me through watching one of my YouTube videos. Hello, if you are watching. But she was telling me like, yeah, she was watching some of my tutorials on Notion. She loved Notion. She was like, and then she realized, like, she went on my website or something and realized I actually do brand design. And then that's when she decided to reach out. But if she had not like did some more research, like follow me on Instagram and, you know, went to my website, she would have never known that I offered branding and website design services. So that is a really great reminder for me that while I keep providing these awesome resources, free resources on YouTube, I really do not talk enough about the fact that I actually offer services like branding and website design. So that was a really, really great reminder for me, and we had such a lovely chat. And so yeah, I love doing client discovery calls, especially when they find me through like watching my content. It's so funny because because they've been watching me, you know, a couple of videos or some of my content, they get to know me quite well. And so because of that, on the call, we can just kind of get right into it really quickly and start talking about their story. And I love connecting with other female entrepreneurs that way. So yeah, it was just a lovely time. And then let's see, later on that month, I did a little photo shoot, mini brand photo shoot with some of my favorite ladies here in Amsterdam. I've been so blessed to have met like incredible friends and genuine female friendships here in Amsterdam. And two of them are deciding to start a business soon. And so they needed some headshots. And I found another friend of mine who I've met, you know, just a couple months ago, who is an aspiring photographer. I mean, she is a photographer, but not like, she doesn't do it for money just yet. She has like a full-time job. And so I hired her and we booked this beautiful studio here in Amsterdam. It's actually a studio for therapists. And I booked it for 4 hours for the four of us. And we just had like the best time, like cheering each other on, getting all pretty or makeup and hair done, just like being each other's cheerleaders and just celebrating the beauty of like female friendships, adult female friendships, and female entrepreneurship and creativity, and just taking the risk to like do hard things even, you know, at the age of 30. So it was a really, really fun time. And yeah, so that happened in April as well. And then I got a super exciting email, and unfortunately, I can't tell you about it yet. It is happening and going live in the month of May. So if you want to make your guesses, let me know in the comments below what you think this super exciting opportunity is coming up for me in the month of May. Yeah, it's probably one of the most exciting things I've gotten in an email, and I'm not kidding you, when I read the email like late at night, I nearly cried. I did cry. I looked at my husband, I was speechless, and he was like, "What?" And I literally just cried, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is happening." And so yeah, entrepreneurship is wild, you guys. Like, I just cannot believe, like, reflecting back on this month of April, like, I really went through it, the emotions up and down. People say, like, you know, life and entrepreneurship is like lots of like, what do you say, like hills and valleys. And like, I felt all of it at all different stages this month. And so it's just so beautiful to kind of have this time to reflect back, to be like, wow, like, it can be so exciting. You really do experience the highest of highs, and then you really dip down to the lowest of lows in a matter of days. And I think I feel it even more because I'm in entrepreneurship and things are just so different every day, and opportunities can come up in such random, sporadic times. But it all seems to always happen at the right time. And I just need to remind myself that in those like ebb moments where I'm just like waiting, doing my thing and just kind of like, you know, trucking along, I just need to remind myself that new opportunities will come, and they will come at the right time. And if they don't come at that very moment, it just means I am making space to do other things like filming for YouTube and creating more products and just investing in the long-term success of my business. So I'm really, really grateful for that. Anyways, that was April. We are in the month of May now. And like I said, in celebration of API month, Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, I wanted to share a little bit about my story being Asian Canadian, specifically Chinese. So I was born in Richmond, BC, Canada. And both my parents are from Hong Kong, so they're Cantonese, Chinese. So I went to like preschool in Canada, but then for kindergarten and grade 1, my parents actually brought me back to Hong Kong, and we lived there temporarily for those 2 years. And it's kind of insane because I was not in international school, so I was like straight into like actually Catholic school, like just actual Chinese Catholic school. And so it was quite an experience because I was always like I felt very westernized. Like I was super Canadian. I was born there, right? And so my first language was English. We did speak Cantonese at home a lot, to kind of like practice the language. And so I did speak Cantonese, but not like as well as my English is. And so, but inside of me, I always thought I was like more Western. I didn't really identify myself as like Chinese per se. And so when I moved to, or like, I guess it's hard to explain it, but the Asian Canadian experience is so different from like if you were born in like Asia. Like we just come from very, very different experiences, even if we might speak the same language. And so when we moved to Hong Kong for those 2 years and be put into like full-time school, like you would think, you know, in Canada or even America, like you go to kindergarten and grade 1, it's like play school, right? Like you go have some field trips, you like polish some metal or something, and like you learn some weather and stuff. But no, like school in Asia is tough, starting even in kindergarten. I just remember being like so sad and depressed and like just stressed because there were exams like every week. I had a tutor because I felt like I was like falling behind in school. And I just remember like the mentality of being a student in Asia was just so different. And I saw myself as like a Westerner almost. And so being there, a lot of times I just felt like I didn't fit in a little bit. I remember being in grade 1, and at the end of the year or semester or something like that, there's like this board, right, that they pin publicly. And it's every single student in that school from 1 to whatever, 500 or something. And they list you in terms of how good your grades are. And so you are publicly basically shown like how smart or dumb you are. And guys, that is so much pressure for a kid. But because of that, I learned discipline. I learned hard work. I learned that in that scenario, success came from studying and no fun and putting my head down and just being like patient with myself to dedicate myself to like education and learning. And the better I did that, the better I did in school, the higher my grades were, and the more I defined it as success in my life, right? And I think I did get actually a lot of my work ethic or hardworking attitude towards life because of those 2 very significant years of my life living in Hong Kong, which is really insane to think about, that 2 mere years in one country can make such a big difference. But it did. And fast forward into grade 2, for some reason, we moved back to Canada, Richmond. And so pretty much for the rest of my adulthood, like all the way from the rest of elementary, the rest of high school, and even into university, I lived in Richmond. And if you don't know Richmond or have never been there, it is in the greater Vancouver region. And so a lot of times I tell people I'm from Vancouver because it's just easier to explain. I did move to Vancouver core once I moved out, but specifically I lived in Richmond. And Richmond, if you haven't been there, then you don't know, that is primarily Chinese people, if not Asians. Like, it's majority Asian people and most of them are Chinese. And so pretty much for the most of my life, I would say I've never really felt what it's like to be a minority, even though I was Chinese. You know, all of my friends were mostly Asian Canadian. Even a lot of my coworkers, once I started working, were Asian Canadian. But yeah, I have to say, because of that experience, that I've never really felt what it's like to be a minority. Race was never really an element that I felt ever deterred me or made me feel less than, or even made me feel different, because a lot of people around me, especially my close friends, were all coming up from a very, very similar upbringing. And so because our upbringing was so multicultural, and the fact that we can speak Cantonese or Chinese and English at the same time together, and like we were all generally like living in this bubble of like very Asian Canadian people, yeah, it always felt very safe for me. And race was really never a thing that I felt like really made my life different, or I didn't ever feel different because of my race. Now, it was not until I moved to Amsterdam. So in 2019, me and my husband decided to move to Amsterdam by ourselves, and then with like pretty much no friends here. We had a couple of friends that we knew. I also decided to quit my corporate job and start my own business for the first time in the digital entrepreneurship, you know, female entrepreneurship space. And so because of that, things were very, very different. Living in Europe, there are not a lot of Asian people. You know, a lot of people say like Amsterdam is so multicultural, blah, 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 but like I wouldn't necessarily say so. Me and Jesse go to a lot of events, festivals, concerts, you know, food truck fest, everything. And I would say, I can't even say that there's 1% Asian people at each of these events. Usually it'd be like us two, and then we might see like 5 other people who are Asian, and then like the rest are like our friends. So it's definitely like a very, very different experience living here. And for the first time, I felt like a minority in both my lifestyle, living in Amsterdam, and also as a female entrepreneurship in this online digital space. And so it was very different. And I would say that generally, most of the time, I do not feel that it has necessarily affected me because I was Chinese. But subtly, occasionally, yeah, I really do feel like it does. And I definitely feel the pressure, especially in the first few like year or two of being here and starting this new life. I definitely felt that pressure to, you know, almost, I don't know if I should even say this, but like hide my Chinese heritage, or just try to flaunt, I guess, or put more emphasis on my Western side of myself, my Canadian side, to, you know, maybe fit in a little bit easier, or in regards to my business, maybe to help me show up to a bigger audience. help me relate to my majority of people who are in this online space and find success in this online space. I definitely felt the pressure to try to fit in a little bit better by emphasizing more of my Canadian side versus more of my Chinese side. Now, I'm sure that it doesn't help that I started my business basically when the pandemic hit. It was just a couple months, a couple months before the pandemic hit. That's when I officially started my business. And that time was when, there was a rise in Asian hate, and especially towards Chinese people. And so living in Europe when that was happening, it was not easy, and that has definitely affected how I felt about my identity during that time. I wouldn't say I've necessarily felt any direct racism towards me, not necessarily, but indirectly, yeah, you definitely feel the heat a little bit. Especially during those times. And starting a business, especially a creative business like I am right now, that comes with a lot of risk, that comes with creativity, that comes with, not that kind of traditional path that most Asian parents would recommend you to do. It's really hard. And I think a lot of times, especially in the beginning, I felt a lot of obligation perhaps to my family. There's a lot of resistance there, not necessarily from them, but just internal resistance that I'm not showing up, in a way that is successful in the eyes of the Chinese community. And that can be really hard. I mean, Chinese people have this, or Asians have this way of saying saving face, which just means upholding the reputation of your family or the social standing of your family, and quitting your very secure corporate job with Fortune 500 company, and then moving to the other side of the world away from your family, and then starting a business that you have no real skill in or success in before, or just doing something that is unheard of in my family was really, really tough. And so it was not easy. I think I was grown up, believing that a certain way of doing things equals and defines how success is seen, especially living in Asia for a little while. I learned that I need to be doing hard work, I need to be studying super hard, I need to do my 9-to-5 job and climb up the corporate ladder, or be a lawyer or be a doctor, in order to really be successful in life and find joy in life. And that was, how everybody lived and defined success in a certain way. But after, it's been over 3 years now, it's coming up to my 4th year of owning my own business and being in this creative entrepreneurship space. And I have to say that I have made so much peace with that identity of mine, and I am so much more comfortable now to let go of all of that and just embracing my Chinese side, embracing my heritage, and just redefining what success means to me, and still see the joy in that. And in fact, I actually think this newer, redefined definition of success is actually, it works for me, it's better for me. And while I can find the space to incorporate parts of that heritage into my day, the way I eat, the way I do my skincare, the way I relate and connect with my friends and my family, my language, all of that is still so integral and built into my everyday life and values and beliefs. Parts of it I'm comfortable with shedding away and just redefining that for myself, because it's okay to be different is what I'm realizing, and I want to be able to share more of that side of myself too moving forward. So yeah, that was a really, really long story about kind of my views on what it's been like being and growing up as an Asian Canadian, and how I've changed that kind of view over time. And yeah, that is my story. And it is May now, and my parents are actually going to be visiting me for the very first time in Amsterdam. They're going to be staying with me for a majority of May. So I really want to spend this month reconnecting with my parents and just spending a lot of quality time with them. And yeah, just maybe even having some of these deeper conversations with them to celebrate, you know, my heritage, their heritage, and how we see that moving forward. And so I hope you guys resonated with that. And even if there's a small part of my story that you resonated with, I would love for you to share with me in the comments below. I would really love to connect with you and hear your story as well. And so yeah, happy API month. If you have the chance, you know, celebrate, support other Asian businesses, especially small business owners and entrepreneurs and services from the Asian American, Asian Canadian community. And yeah, I guess I'm going to wrap up this video here. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe to watch more videos like this. Anyways, hope you guys have a lovely May, and I'll see you guys in the next video.